Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
Welcome back, Peter. Happy Wednesday.
George.
You ready for some reaction action?
I'm happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you too. Yeah.
I'm very happy that you're not wearing bright primary colors.
When we get to the table, people will be able to see I'm much more stripped down, basic than I was last week.
I mean, your hair's down, no hat today.
That's true, yeah. Get some reaction in?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Emotional intelligence is something that people are talking about more and more.
Emotional intelligence. It's like a foreign concept.
Billionaires.
Dyslexic billionaires. Yeah. Well, all the smart people have issues. They're all C students.
Who dropped out of school.
Yeah, they dropped out. That's right.
Connect with human beings.
The A students work for the B students and work for the C students and D students.
And meet people where they're at. If you just expect everyone to understand you and you're not coming from a place of understanding them,
right.
How are you going to get them to move, to shift, to change, to evolve, to take action?
If people understand you and if you understand people, you can effectuate change and shifts. Developing new skills
and every year I think about
is so connected to emotional intelligence because people are afraid to develop new skills.
Where can I grow?
You need emotional intelligence to deal with fear, and without fear, you can develop new skills and move forward with things.
Anymore. They become a skill.
Man, not having fear is a skill. Man, that is so right. If we could develop the skill of being fear averse, of managing fears, I mean, we all have fears as a species, as humans. It's what dictates every one of us what we're able to do and not do in our lives for the entire duration of our lives. So if we can develop a skill that somehow allows us to manage fear, push it aside, deal with it, not respond to it, or not be impacted by it, man, can you imagine that? That would be so huge. And emotional intelligence, he's saying, is the first step towards developing that skill of dealing with fear and not being impacted by fear. I agree 100%. I try and manage my fears by just sort of holding my nose and running through the brick wall. I remember after college, when I was a kid, I went traveling through Europe and I ended up in Interlaken, Switzerland. Well, at the time, they had what was then considered the largest vertical drop of a bungee cord. And it was a platform, it was like on this crane, it was like 1,000 meters.
Holy shit.
And it was really big. I mean, really big. There's probably, I see in my social media feeds now, all these people hurling themselves off of these massive cliffs. So there's probably larger ones now, but at the time it was really big. I was scared shitless. I mean, I was sweating, my heart was pounding through my chest, but I'm like, I'm gonna go do this. And I went up on the platform, and there's all these other young people around, and there's these 3 or 4 younger, they were younger than me, they must have been 17 or 18, all girls. They were sort of smaller in size and shorter in height and just less body mass, and they were like, yeah, let's go. And one by one, they were boo, boo, boo. They like jumped off this platform, and then it was my turn. I'm like, man, if they can do it, what's my problem? And I used that to justify getting through my fear, because I was terrified, man. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna jump, like what's my deal? And I was like, well, these kids did it. They were all fine. It was just a blip in the chronology of life, right? It's just like 30 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever the drop and the bounce and another drop is. It's like, and then it's over and then you go on with your life. So I'm like, they did it, I'm doing it. Boom, I went through. And that to me was a really memorable moment because I remembered that I was emotionally growing up. I don't know if it was emotionally intelligent, but I remember feeling like I was maturing, like, yeah, that's how you get through fear. You find some way to deal with it. You find some reason to justify your action and make it happen, regardless of the fear being there. But sure, emotional intelligence is so directly connected to our ability to deal with fear. So I love what this guy said in our video here. And I wish everybody, find a way, man, find a way to rationalize, to deal with your fears. Fears only hold you back. Flip it, make it so that fears propel you forward, because it can do one or the other. Which one do you want it to be? I want to go forward.
Follow the fear. Well, that's perfect for our next reaction, so.
George, come on.
3, 2, 1.
Where is this? 3, 2, 1. Look at this line.
This is the line of the trip right here.
All right. He's coming. Oh, look at this guy. Look at that snow. That's a crazy line because it's all ridges. How is he getting through that? This is pretty hardcore stuff. This has to be in like Alaska or somewhere. Look at that. That is really vertical and really messed up because it looks like, oof. Oh! And he nails it. Holy shit, George.
They show the close-up here.
Oh, here's a close-up angle because I need to see that. But look at the texture in that line. That's like a lot of knee work. That's a lot of absorption. Here's the first one. Boom. Nails that.
I was just going too fast and trying to jam it.
Oh man, my blood is pumping right now. This is, I feel like we're watching that Laird video again. Oh! God damn it. So that reminds me of the video you played of Laird. My heart started pumping and felt my blood racing and I'm like, my temperature's spiking and I'm really into this. I'm a good skier. I'm a strong skier. I've been skiing my whole life. That I wouldn't do. I'm dying to do heli trips. This was heli accessible terrain, so this is only being tackled by airdrop and the best guys. But that particular thing I wouldn't do. Not because I'm afraid of it, because I know my skill level. I don't have the knees. Did you see all the texture in that line?
Yeah.
And that was a lot of bumps to manage. And I'm not good with bumps because my knees and my hips are a little slammed from years of skiing like this. But there was a time in my life where I would tackle that. But now I'm looking for smoother faces. I don't mind steep. I'll do steep. I don't mind airdrops. I'll do airdrops. And I don't mind long, wide open, big snow faces. I don't mind any of that stuff. But I manage today in my life, I have to manage the impact on my hips and my knees. So that particular run wouldn't be for me, but God damn it, was that good looking. And that guy's good, and he's got balls the size of elephants.
Yeah.
Because that's the real deal right there.
Yeah, with the GoPro has like a really wide angle, and that's what he's wearing. And so to be able to still look steep through that lens means that it's really steep.
So you bring up a good point. You said, it's a good segue into this video, and then here we are talking about
fear.
Fear again. I mean, I wish that I had the physical capabilities to do that because I would love to push myself to tackle that one. That was awesome, man. Got me really psyched because I'm going skiing next week.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, fantastic. Maybe we'll see some similar runs from you when you get back. I'll have some home video. You
might not see that, but you'll see. I could send you some runs, but you know, I'm more of an inbound skier these days.
Yeah.
But I will. I have some friends of mine and I have a heli trip that we're talking about doing in Alaska. This was an exciting video. I'm glad, and I hope that people out there who watched it feel the same way that I feel. If you do, send me a message because I want to connect with other people who are into business and real estate and investing who are also skiers. So send me something and just say, hey, what's up? I ski.
It's a niche market. So last reaction I have is a tweet from Joe Cassandra. So he says, it's faster to light your money on fire than to go back to school and get a master's degree to advance your career. Many use master's degrees more as a pacifier while they figure out their life. Better to dive into a business and you enjoy today, learn on the job, get paid for it.
I couldn't agree more. Higher education, grad school, and even college is not what it used to be for the following reason. So when I was a kid, we used to go to college to become more employable, to become more desirable in the workforce and earn a bigger salary than if you don't go to college. And then you get into the whole argument of which college do you go to, because if you go to Harvard, you'll make more than if you go to American University. I went. But that dynamic in our society is really different now. You no longer have to go to college or go to graduate school and get a master's degree to become more employable, to become more financially successful. If you want to make money and become financially successful, college and grad school is not required at all anymore. Used to be, but now it's not. If you want to become a doctor, you got to go to grad school. If you want to become a lawyer, you got to go to grad school, right? Those things you can't escape. You can't get rid of those requirements. But if you want to make money, if you're just like burning inside with the desire to work and pound the pavement and make money and learn skills and be valuable to yourself or to someone else, college and grad school are no longer required. Go out and get the experience. I value experience way more than I value education in my own companies. I feel like if you've got the core basics of tenacity and integrity and work ethic and desire and loyalty and those things, those grit factors, if you've got those, I can teach investing, I can teach property management, I can teach construction, I can teach success, but I can't teach someone who's not loyal how to be loyal as easily. And so I'm always looking for those gritty factors more than I'm looking for what school you went to. So I agree with what Joe's saying, and especially today. And other industries are feeling the gravitational pull. So as people go towards the new industries, the new economies, NFTs, cryptos, metaverse, engineering, as they gravitate there, they're coming away from the trades, plumbing, electric, carpentry. Not a whole lot of new people, young people are entering those construction trades. And it's creating a real problem. You're going to see, if you're not seeing it already in your own markets, the price of plumbing and electric and carpentry labor going through the roof because there's just not enough people around to take all the bids and jobs for renovations and new construction and repairs. And I have a leaky roof. Can someone come help me? No one's coming to help because they're all busy doing big jobs because there's not that many roofers around. So that's happening, and the same thing's happening with teaching. There's far fewer qualified and great teachers entering the marketplace, which is a real problem. So the availability of all these other options and the ease and the low barrier to entry to enter these other sectors is really shifting the way our economic landscape is, George.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to have a graduate degree, but you have to have heart, you have to have desire, you have to have a brain and a mindset. You have those, you don't need any kind of degree.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'll head over to the table.
Thanks.
Sounds great. Welcome back to the table, Peter.
Hi, George. I like your outfit today, much better than I did the one you were wearing last week.
Yeah, this is more uniform, a little bit more subdued.
I don't know. Last week you were just a lot to handle.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the man bun and the beard and
See, I
the
would think
pink and the blue and the yellow.
You always talk about standing out. I would think that would be helpful to stand out.
You were standing out. You're definitely standing out.
Yeah, speaking of standing out, this is actually a perfect one for our first topic. New Mannahatta, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a Native American word, but...
Say it again. I like the way it sounds.
New Mannahatta?
It's funny how the elimination of the N at the end of that word completely changes how you're able to even get the word out of your mouth.
Yeah, I thought it was...
Manhattan, no problem.
Yeah, when I first...
Mannahatta,
Yeah, I thought it was a typo.
problem.
So they're proposing this extension to the island of Manhattan. Do you see this as just fucking crazy, or is this a valid
I'll tell you what.
solution?
I'll tell you what. Like when California upzoned the entire state to allow for ADUs to be built, we need thinking like this. It's crazy. It's bizarre. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. But that's what we need today. Little bites of the apple aren't going to move the needle in today's society with the problems that we have. So, George, what they're talking about in New York City is infilling, landfilling, creating, where there was nothing before except water, about 1,800 new acres of land on the island of Manhattan. So the reason they're considering even doing this is because there's housing shortages, there's incredible density issues, there's all sorts of issues that are happening not only in New York, but everywhere else, but we're talking about New York. They've got to address it. The only way to address it is to increase supply. This is bold, outside the box thinking. Create land where there wasn't before. You know the old saying, land, they ain't making any more of it?
Right.
Look, I mean, this is going to put that to the test. Manhattan always behaved like Manhattan because it's only so big and everybody in the world has wanted to be there forever. So it can only handle so much. They're talking about increasing the size of Manhattan to accommodate about another 250,000 people who can live there. This is on the southern end of the tip of Manhattan where the financial district is. I mean, it's crazy, it's bizarre, it's never been done before. It's going to be incredibly expensive, and it's going to take a long time to do. But this is what you have to do. You have to think outside the box. You have to push the boundaries. I mean, you can't just say, oh, we're going to take that little 1 acre parcel over there and put up a 12-story building. We're going to create new housing. It's not going to make a dent. You want to make a dent, you have to build. You have to increase the supply, and you have to do it in numbers that are blowing away anything that we could just do in our normal day-to-day. So California upzoning the entire state. I mean, their back was against the wall, and they finally said, okay, you win. We can't regulate anymore. We got to just upzone. Let them build, right? California said that recently. New York, with this mayor, God, thank God he's there. I mean, he's thinking, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but he's thinking in new and different ways, and it sounds to me like it's the right track to be on. I like this new mayor so far. He's creating the right momentum. He's thinking outside of the box. He's not afraid to put a big, huge idea like this on the table. I mean, this is big stuff. And previous mayors have thought about doing little bits and pieces of adding on to sides of Manhattan or certain little areas. I mean, this plan, 1,800 new acres, this is a big, wild plan. And all the states everywhere have to think like this. We talk about housing unaffordability and housing issues all the time. And George, 100 out of 100 times you hear me say, you want to stabilize housing unaffordability and housing prices, introduce new supply. Let them build, create upzoning, look at laws and regulations, stop restricting development, and stop wanting to extract money from these developers who are entrepreneurs who are taking risks. You have to promote. Let them build. You have to find new ways to use the land that you have. And in this case, in New York City, when you don't have land, you're going to make more land. Holy shit, they're going to make more land. They're going to make more land in New York City to build more housing. I mean, it's crazy. I love it. George, this is the kind of topic where I want to stick to it like glue, because I want to be talking about it for months and months and years to come, because I think it's the way of the future. You have to think like this. I think we're on the right track.
We'll create a new Mannahatta update.
New Mannahatta.
A new Mannahatta.
But look, I don't know if it's Mannahatta or if it's Manhattan, but either way, Manhattan has a housing unaffordability issue, it has a housing stability issue. 250,000 new units of housing just in Manhattan from this. I mean, it's awesome. And think about the ratables. Think about the tax base. Think about what they'll be able to do with all of that money that's coming in from them. I mean, they're going to have to pay for creating these 1,800 acres, so that's going to get bonded and paid for over time. But there's all sorts of revenue to the city that's going to occur as a result of the buildings and the businesses that now exist that weren't there before. They're going to pay into the income tax, the sales tax, the property tax. I mean, all of those tax systems are going to get revenue from this. It's awesome. So I think it's the right way to go. Hopefully it can be done safely with an environmentally conscious perspective. You know, you don't want to displace the shrimp or the clams or whoever is living in the riverbeds. But look, you got to deal with this. There's a funny story. There's a really smart guy, a friend of mine. He owns a lot of apartment buildings in New York City and Brooklyn and Queens. Yeah. He would always say to me, the shrimp, they don't want to move the shrimp. These crazy people, they're blocking business, they're blocking commerce because they don't want to touch the shrimp. Yeah. He used to get very upset about the shrimp. He was making fun of the environmental lobby. Yeah, it was pretty funny. So now I'm like, don't hurt the shrimp. Yeah. But I really don't hurt the shrimp. But you're like, build the 1,800 acres, safely. And man, that's a great, huge, big scope project. I love that.
Yeah. If you have waterfront property at Battery Park City, start.
That's the other thing, right? You bring up a great point. What about all these buildings that are there, that Battery Park City and at the tip of Manhattan and Center Street and all these properties that are like proximate or on the water with these incredible views of Brooklyn and Jersey City and the Statue of Liberty. Now, when they build these 1,800 new acres, you're going to be looking out on new land. I mean, those guys are going to be pissed. They're going to lobby against it. Totally. They're going to say, you're going to hurt my property value. Not in my backyard.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's going to be an interesting fight. And there's nothing more powerful and no voice that's louder in New York City than the big real estate owner and developer lobby. Because those guys pull a lot of strings.
Well, then not in my backyard. That's really what held up the zoning in California for so long. So it's, that's a common argument.
Well, there's another movement that's sweeping our country. It's called In My Backyard.
Right.
And we're going to need to all try to consider adopting that mindset, because I don't know how you complain about the housing issues and complain about all the stuff, but then say, but not in my backyard. I mean, we're all going to have to participate in this.
Speaking of participation, entrepreneurship is up. There's been this surge in 2021.
When you say entrepreneurship is up, like just in general?
So,
like
yeah, so-
people
so-
opening up small businesses?
Yeah,
What are you talking about?
New business applications.
New business
Yeah,
applications.
so it was 5.4 million new business applications were filed as opposed to...
In 2021.
In 2021. 4.4 was 2020, 3.5 was 2019.
Yeah, not a surprise at all.
Yeah.
But continue with your question.
No, that was actually my question was, what do you think is driving the surge? And, seemed like you have thoughts on it already. Like, what advice do you have for those people that are starting out in that
So
as well?
this is one of those I told you so moments for me. I saw this trend coming years ago when I got out of college. I knew that entrepreneurship was for me.
Yeah.
For my own personal reasons. I knew I was not a great employee. I was not really employable. I didn't have traditional resume of boxes that an employer would want to have checked off before they hired me. Although some of them did for a while, but they gave me a shot, and I always appreciated that. But I knew that I had to be on my own because I'm just, ADD all over the place, and I got the heebie-jeebies. But removing me from the equation, I saw that this was a trend that a lot of young people wanted to do. At that time, it was sort of the beginning of like the rapper and the athlete personality, booze brands and the clothing brands, and they were the entrepreneurs that young people were looking up to, the role models. And slowly but surely, young people had these role models that they could point to and say, I want to be like that. I want to be like her. I want to be like him. And more that caught on over the years. Throw into that recipe technology, the web, where we are now with crypto, NFTs, metaverse. It's easier than ever to make money without being employed. So it's easier than ever to have a really smooth entry point into all these new industries because they're so new. Crypto, metaverse. I mean, Facebook just paid some bank in the middle of Sheboygan, Nebraska, I think $60 million for the Meta name.
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah,
Wow,
the URL name.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
And it just goes to show you, this little bank secured it for whatever reason. They made $60 million. Facebook has the name. They felt it was that important to pay $60 million for it.
Talk about digital property.
Yeah, so people are making bets on these new spaces and these new technologies, and young people are following. They're following the money. They're following the big entrepreneurs, the Elons, the Zuckerbergs, buying and selling NFTs and creating NFTs and crypto and all this stuff. It's super exciting. And the younger generation wants mobility, flexibility, ease. They want freedom. They want to work in their pajamas. They want to work from home, wherever home may be, because they're not buying homes. They're going to want to do what they want when they want to do it more than ever before. I mean, I'm a guy that likes to do what I want when I want to do it. But more than ever, the younger generation now, the people who are teens in their late teens and early 20s who are coming into the workforce, who are coming into commerce, they have their own set of needs culturally that people my generation have never seen before. More than ever, I see the trend of entrepreneurship just continuing to ramp up. I think it's going to go parabolic. I think that you don't have to be employed in a traditional corporate situation in order to make money, and people want to explore these new areas. And because it's so easy, I think it's a couple things that it means. Number one, that what goes up can easily come down. So you see these crypto and NFT markets can very easily correct at a moment's notice without any forewarning or without any indication of what's about to come. So I think the young people need to be careful about that because they haven't lived through economic cycles and they don't really know what corrections and crashes and all of that stuff means. But certainly it's easier to get into these industries today than it was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So people are very attracted to that. They're very attracted to the ability to work for yourself. I think that as markets grow and these industries grow, it's going to weed out some of the weaker entrepreneurs. It's going to weed out some of the people who are just all talk, no action. Those people are going to fall by the wayside. They're going to have to get normal jobs, what we previously were calling normal jobs. But, sure, that new business applications are going up. I mean, everybody wants to have a store. Everyone wants to have an online presence. Everyone wants to have accounts, trading accounts, crypto accounts, Binance accounts, Kraken account. I mean, all this stuff. Now, you don't need business licenses for those, but to your point, George, people want to try it on their own because they
independence.
That's what they want. So I for sure have seen this coming for a long time, and I'm all for it, but it's definitely going to weed out the weak and favor the strong.
Yeah, no, I get that. I hear that. Rents in many downtown urban centers have now reportedly returned or exceeded pre-pandemic levels. Is that surprising to you at all?
No, because all the people that bought houses sight unseen in Shkapatapank, upstate New York, or Japip, New Jersey, and other places like that outside of the urban centers during the pandemic, during 2020.
Right.
All those people are like, shit, I don't want to live out here anymore. I want to move back to the city.
Yeah.
So we're going to see those properties correct when they sell them and when they move back to the city. And we're going to see pricing, it's what we're seeing now, pricing correct and spike upwards when they move back into the city. So George, after 9/11, the financial district, everybody cleared out for good reason. And what we found was that after about 90, 120 days, everybody moved right back in. People tend to have a short memory with these things. It's an unbelievable thing. I've seen it over and over and over again. In 2008, we didn't really have an exodus out of New York City, but we had market conditions that changed. That was a big correction in our marketplaces. It was a liquidity crisis, and that created an uncertainty on how to price assets. But there wasn't an exodus out of town. But with the pandemic, there was. And not just New York, but all the towns. People said, screw this. I'm leaving the densely populated urban centers, and I'm going out to where there's light and air and fields and space. And a lot of them are staying there, but a lot of them are coming back. And the ones that are coming back are bringing friends with them. And that's why rents and pricing are not only at where they were pre-pandemic, but they're now, in a lot of cases, exceeding that. And that's what we see. It's like a rubber band, George. The rubber band will expand, expand, expand. It'll come in for a correction, and then it'll expand again, and it goes even further. I mean, if you look at the housing and rent price trends over decades for New York City, you'll see that it's a graph that goes like this, but it trends upwards, and every time it comes down, it goes up even higher than it was before. And we think, my God, how can that happen? It's supply and demand with everything. You guys know that about me. And that's why they're talking about building 800 new acres of land at the southern tip of Manhattan. And that's why there's housing affordability and supply discussions happening all over the country, all over the world even, because we have to find new ways to handle the demands on our urban centers. Urban centers are the center of the world, right? Culture, entertainment, food, dining, colleges, universities, transportation, jobs, right? Look at all the companies that have doubled down during the pandemic in these urban locations. Look at Facebook and Google in Manhattan. When everybody ran out, Facebook and Google signed leases, bought buildings. I mean, they really doubled down. They tripled down because they knew that people were going to come back, and they did. And they're paying them more money, and they're renting apartments for higher prices because they're getting paid more money because we're in an inflationary environment and wages, like everything else, has gone up. So this is what's happening, not just in New York, but everywhere. Man, it's a lot.
I think it goes back to that thing we say of everything is an opportunity, that, these things that we view as only disasters or only as negative things.
No.
Yeah, there are opportunities for
There's
people
two sides.
that have a vision to see it.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those things. 100%. Many investors are shying away from investing in the dollar. That's something that's being reported now. Do you think, has the dollar peaked?
Is that news to you that many investors are shying away from the dollar?
Honestly, it's kind of news to me that people were investing in the dollar anyway. Like, I think that's where my take is. But I'm curious your take.
This seems like old news to me.
Right.
I don't know why you'd want to invest in a depreciating asset. The dollar is depreciating. It's devaluing. Why? Because they just print more of it. Like at the touch of a button, boom. The swipe of a pen, boom. The dollar decreases in value. If you've got money sitting in a bank account, it's great. You have access to it. But if you have too much, you need to get it deployed into some investments, because the amount of money they're printing is creating such a devaluation velocity and rate. We've never seen anything like it. I wouldn't invest in the dollar. I don't want to hold dollars. I don't want to buy dollars. I don't want to invest in dollars. I don't want to invest in real estate. I want to invest in companies. I want to invest in stocks. I want to invest in things that have value based on the cash flow that they generate. And so for me, holding dollars or buying dollars or investing dollars, I don't know, bad move. I haven't been doing that for a long time. And anybody out there that wants to debate me on this, DM me. I'll bring you up and we'll do a podcast with you. But I am not a fan of holding dollars. And if you are, stick your chest out and reach out to me and let me know, because I want to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's crazy. I saw this video the other day somebody sent to me. It was this millionaire, or supposed millionaire. I actually don't know.
Supposed millionaire, because you have
who knows?
Everyone's a millionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
They rent a Lambo. Yeah. They have some Gucci shirt on that they borrowed from their friend, and
exactly.
They post. They're a millionaire.
Yeah. So
let's just say person.
Yeah. Who knows if it was legitimate? But the advice that this individual gave was,
and they're giving advice.
Yeah. Pay yourself first. he likened it to the oxygen mask in an airplane. That when you're an entrepreneur, you should pay yourself first.
Like if you have a company or a small business, make sure you get paid first?
Yeah, and so I was wondering, how do you assess the best way in which to pay yourself, to fund your business, to pay your employees? Is there a business model that has worked for you in that way over the years?
So that kind of thinking strikes me as the thinking that someone who is defensive about being successful would think. Like, I'm not sure if my business is going to work out, so I better milk the money out for me first. George, I pay myself last in my business. I pay my employees first. I pay my bills first. I pay my vendors and suppliers first. And whatever's left over, then I have a conversation with my CFO about, hey, can I get paid? First thing I did in the pandemic was I took myself off the getting paid list at all because there was uncertainty. I wanted to make sure there was enough money there to pay everybody else. I want to invest in business. I want to invest in the long term. George, check this out. You have 20 grand in your bank account after a month's worth of sales in business. You have 20 grand worth of bills to pay, or you're going to pay yourself 20 grand. I mean, I got to pay the bills, man. So it may be that I don't get paid this month. That's what entrepreneurship is. You know, entrepreneurship is not like you're getting checks all the time and life's great. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, entrepreneurship is you don't know if you're going to get paid. You don't know if you're going to eat. You don't know if you're going to be able to stroke a check to pay your own rent bill on your house where you live. You got to pay your vendors and suppliers. You got to pay the rent for your office or for your store. You know, that's what being in business is. That's what taking risk is. That's what ownership is. If you don't want any of those risks, don't be an owner, right? If you want to force yourself into the spotlight and take on those risks and fight your way out of the jungle, maybe you're the kind of person that can be an owner. But if you're not, you know, if you have to say pay yourself first, I mean, I don't even know what that means. Before what? Before I fund in my 401k for my employees, before I buy property, plant, or equipment to make the product that I need to make. I don't even understand I don't know. I want to, that's the guy I want to call in and have a conversation with. Fuck the person that wants to invest in dollars. I mean, that's just, that'll be a 4-second conversation. But the guy that wants to pay himself first, I have so many questions for this knucklehead. Yeah. What do you mean by that? Like pay yourself first before your staff? I mean, are you showing up doing the work of 50 people? If you have a staff of 50, who's doing that? They are. You got to pay them. You got. I don't know, man. This is the kind of thinking that I don't align with, and of course, the question was posed to me in a very limited context. So that's why I'm saying whoever it was that said that, maybe DM him on Twitter or whatever, and get him up here for a conversation with me because
I'll try and track him down.
I think if you're a leader, you pay yourself last.
Yeah.
I think if you're a risk taker and a responsible risk taker because you own your business, you're paying yourself last. And I think that if you are a long-term thinker and a long game with your business strategy, I think you're paying yourself last. I mean, to me, it's not important that I get my money today, right now. I mean, I need a little bit of money to live on, but I want to know that my money's going to be there in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years out, and it's going to grow and it's going to compound because I've added value to my business, because I've grown my business. I've grown revenue. I've made investments in my business infrastructure. I brought on more people. I've gotten larger office space or whatever to handle the more people that I brought in. I bought cars and trucks to handle the deliveries and I mean, all of that stuff costs money. I'm doing that before I buy myself for anything or pay myself more than, I don't know. This one pisses me off.
Yeah, well, you mentioned long-term thinking. We've talked about time horizons throughout our whole time in this podcast. What do you need to understand about a time horizon in order to optimize for success in your mind?
Well, everyone's different and it's shifting right now. I used to invest for the long term only. I mean, for 35 years, I was investing for the long term, right? But now there's so many different things happening in the investment landscape and the alternative asset landscape with an inflationary environment that we're in. I'm making investments now. In addition to my long-term investments, I'm making some shorter-term investments that are short-term horizons, that are 1 year out, 6 months out, 3 months out. And I want to get in and get out and recapture my money, recapture my profits, then redeploy into something else because I don't want to have all that long-term exposure. With long-term exposure, you have policy risk, right? We talk about the wave of policy that's changing across our country. If my money is deployed long-term, I'm exposed to that risk. We talk about inflationary risk. If my money's deployed into long-term assets, I'm susceptible to whatever inflation's going to do. Whereas if I'm quickly deploying money in and out and making certain bets in certain key areas where I can make a 30-day, 120-day, a 360-day investment with a greater degree of certainty, I'm gravitating more towards doing that a little bit these days. I have a blend between long and short-term investing. I think a lot of people need to figure out what's good for them. I'm 53 years old, so I'm trying to change things in my life. I mean, it was different when I was 23 and 33. So I think age has a lot to do with it. I think your propensity to take risk and the duration of that risk has a lot to do with it. That's age-driven. I think it's different for everybody. It depends on what market you're in and where you're located as well. If you're in the middle of a densely populated urban environment where there's real marketplace and real commerce happening, it's very quick, you're going to have access to different opportunities than if you're in the middle of the country and you're dealing with farmland, or you're dealing with things that are a little less liquid and a little less have less velocity.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're a younger person, if you're in your 20s or even your 30s, all your investments really probably should be more long term because you have more time to give to them.
That's the way I thought.
Yeah. So
when you're young, you always have more time to make more money. When you get to be my age or older than me, you start to think, well, maybe I don't have that much more time to make more money. And you start to get a little bit more conservative. That's sort of human nature in the investor world. That happens with everybody.
All right, so we got Return of the Zest Quest, as we did last week. We got what's a small habit or behavior of yours that has added up to something significant? It can be good or bad.
Great question. So I think a couple of things. First thing I can think of is I get up really early. And it's not easy a lot of times, and it wasn't easy a long time ago when I started doing it, but you force yourself to get up early. And I love that feeling, though, when I'm up and no one else is, and when the sun's just like coming up. And when I was living in New York, I used to get up really early, even before the sun came up, and I used to feel like I was the only one alive. I felt like I was king of the city. I'd walk out on the streets or go into the park and just be me. I wouldn't see another human being. It's a really incredible feeling, and for me, it was a great way to start the day and a great way to sort of set the tone for my life. So for me, getting up early was definitely a little thing that ended up being a big thing.
When did that start?
So for me, it started, I think, when I was 23 or 24 after graduate school. I was in New York City. I'd moved up from Washington, D.C. I think it was a little easier for me now that I think about it, George. I remember being out really late and coming home sometimes when the sun was coming up, as you do when you're in New York and you're young.
Yeah.
But I was getting the sense that this is a time of day that I want to be awake.
Totally.
So
yeah, one of my favorite memories, I think, of my life actually was, I was living overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge. I'll never have that apartment again unless I become astronomically successful compared to where I'm at now.
You will be.
But that's the plan. But at the
we'll
time,
do it together.
At the time I was going to school. And so I was overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge. That was my room. And I was at 4 a.m. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go out. And so I went out, walked to the Brooklyn Bridge, went into Dumbo, came up, and the sunrise.
Isn't that great?
And it was just, there's nothing particularly amazing about the experience. I can't say to you like, oh, this thing happened.
To me, it feels godlike.
But it was godlike. It was like the presence of the divine in that moment. So, yeah. So
excellent.
I hear that. We'll move on to Q&A, or anything else you want to touch on before we do that?
Do I want to touch on anything?
Maybe we shouldn't touch on anything. Maybe that'd be inappropriate. But do you want to talk about anything?
I think I'm okay. I think we talked about a lot.
Yeah, we covered a lot. Yeah, this is fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Peter. I'll see
Thanks,
you over
George.
in Q&A.
All right.
Q&A?
Let's do Q&A, George.
All right. I'm 33 with $40,000 in college loan debt. As a result, I'm not
You're
in
lucky.
any hurry to take on more debt, but I know getting into real estate will likely require more loans. Can you talk a bit about debt markets and why I should get over this aversion to debt?
40 grand in student loans. You're already ahead of the game. Most people have 240 grand in student loans or 140 grand in student loans. That's point number one. Point number two is I'm sure it's very cheap debt. I'm sure it's 3 or 4%. Keep it on the books, keep paying it down. For now, don't be in a rush because you want to use your money to invest and do other things. But Elizabeth, when you buy income producing real estate, you're going to want to take on debt. And you're going to want to make sure it's properly sized and priced for the asset that you're buying. That's good debt. When you take on debt to buy assets that produce cash flow and that you can increase in value over time, that's the kind of debt you want to be focused on, as opposed to consumer debt on your credit cards or for your cars or for other things that you might not need, but you think that you want because society screws with our heads, messaging us to buy all this stuff that we don't need, forget about that stuff. Don't go into debt for that, but do go into debt for great commercial income producing properties that you're going to buy to start your real estate career or invest for your family or for yourself. It's completely different. I mean, please tell me that you understand the difference, Elizabeth, between a student loan and a mortgage loan on an apartment building or some sort of income producing property. When you take on debt to buy that piece of income producing property, you can write off the mortgage payments, you can write off the interest. It's all part of the formula as to why buying real estate is a great move in the first place. So you want to look at debt as options for you when you're buying income producing real estate. Some people will say, oh, don't buy the real estate unless you can buy it all cash without the mortgage. Elizabeth, I don't know. I mean, I've not really done that. I always use debt. I'm always in the debt markets. I'm always sizing and pricing, refinancing the current mortgages on my properties. It's a big part of our business. It's a big part of what I do in my day-to-day. I encourage you to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. Elizabeth, bad debt, going to the mall and buying stuff you don't need. Good debt, taking on a little bit of debt to buy an income-producing piece of real estate. Great move, and I hope you can see the differences in that.
Yeah, awesome. All right, thanks so much, Peter, and I'll see you next time.